Today I sit down with legendary Irish cyclist Mr. Dan Martin, born into a family steeped in cycling history, a father who was a professional cyclist and a mother who was Stephen Roach's sister. Dan's path seemed destined for the world of professional cycling. Today we'll explore whether cycling was always his destiny or whether there were alternatives. We relive Dan's biggest wins, Liège, Grand Tour stages, Lombardy and the low points, including 10 years on from that crash, just metres from claiming his second Liège win. You're going to love this conversation. To support today's podcast, please check out our sponsors in the description below. And now, it's Mr. Dan Martin. Dan Martin, welcome to the Roadman podcast.
A badly timed drink, yeah. Great to be here, yeah.
Dan, your family, you're entrenched in cycling. Like, I've ridden with your dad a few times in Girona. He's a former pro. Your mum, Stephen Roach's sister. Were you always going to be a pro cyclist, or was there ever an option of a different career?
That's a way to start a chat, isn't it? Straight in there.
Straight in, no kissing.
I mean, you think that it just having the family, it definitely just made me love cycling. And I think when you love something, you put everything you've got into it. And it's I grew up in a household that was like I was just surrounded by everything bike. You know, my dad still loves the sport to this day. Like, watches every single race more than me. Like, there was cycling magazines everywhere, over the house. It was constantly on TV, and I'm watching my dad race as well. And it was kind of like, yeah, I think it was pretty inevitable that I was going to, if I was good enough, that I was going to be a pro cyclist. So it's, but yeah, obviously that's wanting to be something and ending up making it a career is something very different, obviously. So yeah, I mean, it's obviously maybe genetics helps and all that as well. But I do think being surrounded by cycling and having an uncle that won the Tour de France, it does give you a certain self-belief that it's possible, that it's realistic to be a pro cyclist. And I think it enabled me to, like, not so much, I read a lot of times people say, oh, my dream is to do this. Whereas there was never any question in my mind from the age of about 12 that it wasn't like I'm dreaming of being a pro cyclist. It's I am going to be a pro cyclist. And I think when you've got that, when you have that attitude and when you have that, not even determination, just that it's untethered belief that it's going to happen, then it does encourage you to take certain risks that make it happen. Like I must often know, if I believe I'm going to win a race, you take every risk on the downhill. So you're like, well, I'm going to win, so I'm not going to crash. And you take every risk possible to get to the bottom of that downhill first. And so yeah, I definitely, obviously being surrounded it. I've always said this as well. Huge amount of admiration for any cyclist who picks up a bike and rides a bike without having family, because I always had this supportive ring around me that my dad's always pretty much been through every experience that I've been through, you know. So you've always got somebody who understands right there, not asking stupid questions like, oh, why didn't you win today, or why did you fall off? You know, it's just like, and that also helps obviously, because it's always a backup call. It's like we've been there, we understand, so you'll get through it, you know. So yeah, yeah.
Did you have an awareness how big Uncle Stephen was, or was he just Uncle Stephen?
I think there's kind of a pseudo-created anecdote in my book, but it's totally true. Like, that he was sitting opposite me eating his turkey, you know, it's just like, he's just my uncle, you know. It never really, like, I think that kind of was always an attitude I had, you know. I was just around pro cyclists, and it was just like, it was just like meeting a factory worker or somebody who works in a restaurant, you know. It's just that's just their job. They're just a cyclist, you know. It's just like it wasn't abnormal to be a pro cyclist, it wasn't even abnormal to win the Tour de France. I just assumed it was just something that people do. They just go and win the Tour de France, I guess. But
everyone's uncles won the Tour.
yeah, exactly. But honestly, I didn't see him a lot, because obviously we were living in the UK. There, those couple of years when I spent the summers with Nico and Stephen when they lived in Dublin. But then they moved back to France, and then we'd go to Ireland. We kind of crossed paths a few times here and there, but not as much to have a big impact on my career.
And it was actually kind of nice because Nico, an amazing career, stages, Vuelta leaders, jerseys, brilliant career by any metric of judging a career, but still an absolute impossibility to step out of the dad's shadow. Like that shadow was, unless he went on to become Tadej Pogacar, he wasn't stepping out of Stephen's shadow, where you have that just 1 degree of separation where you never had the Stephen Roach shadow getting cast on your career. You're able to build your own identity basically from day one.
Yeah, exactly. I didn't have that name attached to me. So it was almost like a subplot in my story that, oh yeah, and by the way, he's this, he's Steve Roach's nephew, So no, I mean, it made a lot, like, obviously there's also always an incredible amount of pressure on Nico but I don't think he ever found that. I don't know if he ever felt it. It's hard to say, but obviously, I think every Irish cyclist kind of struggles with that. We've got these two greats of the cycling world, not just Irish cycling, like with Sean Kelly and Stephen. It's just like, every Irish cyclist is like, we're never going to be, it doesn't matter what we do, you say, unless you win every race on the planet. You're not going to be able to compete with them.
Yeah, it's so true. What was your relationship like with Nico? Was it helpful having a cousin, or did you have I have cousins that I don't even think I get invited to their wedding. Like I don't know them at all. Did you have a good relationship with him?
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, he got me into Le Pont Marseille, which is my shot. Like, I basically took his place in Marseille, which really kickstarted my road to being a pro. And then always supportive, always just around the corner. And when I was in Marseille, I had those 3 years, and he just around the corner in Monaco, Nice, Monaco, and then just strange, because you've got somebody in a different. We're never in the same team, but somebody in a different jersey encouraging you during a race, encouraging each other, always being there for each other, and it's I mean, I remember quite fondly, like there was one Lombardia, I can't remember which year it was, when I got second, and on the Gisalo when it finished in Lecco, we hit the Gisalo with like 40k to go. And Nico just came up to me and says, you look incredible today. Like, I was actually suffering at the time. I was actually having a bit of a bad moment. He's like, you look really good today. You can win this. And it was just like, it almost took me aback, And it's just like little things like that he said to me during racing and stuff, during the career, and just like little messages of support, like being there when Nico won this first stage of the Vuelta that year. In stage one, I think we had a TT the day before. So, but just little things like that, being there, sharing those moments with somebody that's family. I mean, that's a pretty special thing to have, to be able to enjoy.
Everyone always wants to know, is it nature? Is it nurture? Obviously, you had nature with those genetics coming from that family, but nothing happens without the hard work as well. When you think back to those early years, was there a coach or a mentor in your corner who really helped accelerate that progression?
Oh, I mean, just my dad. I mean, I didn't really have a coach until I turned pro in like 2008, 2009 was when I first had my first coach. So that's where the sport's changed, I mean, I literally got to being a professional cyclist without even having a trainer. And it's, obviously my dad was always in the corner to offer advice, but then he soon realized as well that once we got to, like, he didn't have a clue about power training or watts or anything, it was just a case of going out and sprinting for road signs. And that's basically how I trained. That's how I trained to start with, And it's just go to this hill, ride up it as high as you can. And that's basically how I've gone full circle now. That's how I train now. But I mean, it's just obviously a massive combination of different things. And as I say, self-belief and just things working out well overall, just like somebody looking out for me, definitely. A guardian angel or whatever, just like kind of, I would say it takes an enormous amount of not only potential, but also luck to be a successful pro cyclist, because all you need is a mechanical when you're just about to win a big race, or a crash when you're in the top form of your life and you break your collarbone and then it knocks you out. And, it's there's so many things. We're so vulnerable as cyclists. Even if you're the best guy in the world, there's still a lot can go wrong to stop you from winning the race.
Yeah, no, 100%. And it's like, it's invaluable having those people in your corner. Like you've Nico, who's kind of navigating the same space as you and making those mistakes, but 12 or 24 months ahead of you. So he can kind of say, hey, like I went down this path and I tried this diet or I tried this type of training plan. Here's the result I got. Probably wouldn't do it that way if I had the opportunity again.
I think I was also quite strong-minded as well. So I did operate on my own path. So I wouldn't listen to crazy diets, or if people said, "Oh, you need to lose a bit of weight," because that's like obviously there's a lot of, especially in French cycling when I was there was a lot of eating disorders and shit like that, and it's just like just obsessed with being skinny. It's like, oh, it doesn't matter if you're so tired you can't go training. You haven't eaten I haven't eaten for 3 days. It's like it's just bizarre. It's funnily enough, I actually the whole nutritional tactics that we're seeing now, as far as just eat as much as you can. That's basically what I did my whole career. Like from the start, I figured out that just from trial and error, I was like, wait a minute, if I eat lots, I can train really hard and I seem to get skinnier. If I try and diet, I always put on weight. So I was like, I'm just going to eat what I want when I want. And then that's basically, yeah, now the whole sport's kind of gone that way. And I think that is also why I kind of got an analytical brain that I've worked out how my body worked best kind of on my own. And I was like, just analyzing stuff all the time, just thinking, okay, if I do this works best for me. So if I do and yeah, I mean, also lucky to get forward into the Garmin team, because I think they were scientifically very, very strong. We were ahead of the game as far as you see the team time trial performances, nutritionally very well, very good. And we were, that's why earlier in my career I was I could have as much success as I did, because we were massively ahead of the game, especially as far as nutrition and getting all this carbohydrate in you or whatever that we're seeing now.
I remember when I was out in France, I was out with a DN2 team, and we used to call it these like FBI raids. The director would come through the door unannounced, but he wouldn't be looking for anything nefarious. He's looking for croissants and he's looking for baguettes, because we lived above a bakery. So he'd be going through all the presses looking for croissants and baguettes, and we used to put them into like a plastic bag, put them into the washing machine, and then pile dirty clothes in on top of them to hide all the croissants from him. But it was that, like, you were constantly in fear of being fat. Like, my first experience on a French team was meeting the director, and he literally pinched my stomach, and he's just like, okay, yeah, good. And it's like, this is an eating disorder packaged, ready to go.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's kind of, I remember when I won the time trial in Val d'Aosta, literally one of the road captains of the race and the team, and he lived there. He wasn't in the race, he just lived there. And he's like, oh, imagine how much you would have won by if you were skinny. And I was like, what are you talking about? Like, literally, I won. Like, literally, it's just an obsession. It's like, and even to this day, I mean, I won't name names, but one of the teams I was in lately, like, I get, like, I go to the doctor at the first team meeting, and I literally sit down. And by the way, they've changed now; they're not in cycling anymore, so it's not really that big a deal. But it just shows that it's still prevalent in some aspects of cycling. This is only a few years ago. And they start in October, November training camp. They start talking about weight, and they're like, oh, so what's your race weight? And I just I stood up to them. I was like, what does it matter? And they're like, oh yeah, but I'm like, and I can't remember how the conversation went, but it got down to me asking the question, well, so what's better? What, in your view, Doc, what is better? Being skinny, like super lean and getting dropped, or being 5 kilos overweight and winning the race? And they genuinely couldn't answer the question. They're literally like, they were stunned. It was like, I'm like, and they're like, it wouldn't be possible to win if you were. I'm like, no, answer the question. And they couldn't answer it. They were like, because in their eyes, it was like, it was almost like they were saying, no, it's much better to be lean than winning.
Yeah.
At least you look the part, and it's like, wow, that's just like it. And yeah, I mean, it's this whole, yeah. Anyway, that's a whole rabbit hole we don't need to go down, but it's that's just culture. But it demonstrates well. I was surrounded by guys who were going through eating disorders, and I just managed to somehow just blank it all out and do my own thing and ignore people completely. I'm like, no, I'm going to eat as much pasta as I can today because we've got a big stage tomorrow.
But that's a commonality you see in a lot of athletes. Like, I've talked to, not just cyclists, but other athletes who have achieved massive success in their careers. And some of them, a really interesting one is Olivia O'Toole. She's the record ever Irish goal scorer on the female team. She scored more goals than Robbie Keane, the female team. But she came from a really difficult background in working class Dublin. Almost all of her friends and family were addicted to heroin at an early age. Really difficult time growing up in Dublin in the 80s. But she talked to me about how she had to build this bubble. She constructed this purposeful force field around herself where she said, I'm going to be the greatest ever Irish women's football player, no matter what happens. And it's like anything toxic just bounced off this force field that she built for herself. You see this time and time again. That's obviously an extreme example, but you've done something similar with constructing this force field around toxic attitudes to insulate you to create that success.
Well, even as far as I think definitely as I got older, I grew in confidence in and would just do what I felt was best for me, and taking control of my own destiny and my own career like that. For example, going out and actually buying an energy drink that actually worked well for me. And that's what and make into this end having to make my own bottles before stages, because I'm like, no, this is better than the team drink, so I want to drink this. The last 5 years of my career, I basically never had a massage because I found it just didn't do anything for me. I felt my legs felt better just through circumstances. I had a few stages when I was like, we'd get to the hotel at 8 o'clock at night, 9 o'clock at night, and I'd be like, I can't be bothered going for a massage. I'm just going to go to dinner and go to bed. And I'd wake up and have amazing legs the next day and be like, wait a minute, my legs felt better without massage. So why would I? So I'm going to try it. So I tried it over a few days, and and I was like, I don't have massage at home either. So why would I suddenly go to a race and suddenly have some guy pounding into my legs? And I ended up not having massage and felt a lot better for it. And funnily enough as well. And this is only something that I've figured out since I stopped. I did started 19 Grand Tours during my career. I did 9 with massage, 10 without. And of the 9 that I did with massage, I got sick 5 times, maybe even 6 times. Of the 10 without massage, not a single sickness. So, coincidence, possibly, but it's kind of and it just, looking back now, I'm just like, I just stood up for myself, and it actually worked better for me, and it's it's stuff like that, it's just taking control, and as you say, that hard-headedness, but it also takes a lot of people, get sucked into this whole, you're kind of expected to have massage, and there's guys like, oh, why? And you feel like you're putting a guy out of a job almost, because it's the guy who's supposed to be working for you is like, oh, and I'm just like, well, no, I just don't feel good off it. So it's nothing personal. I just,
But talking about that kind of growing into your own identity, you made the decision at an early age to switch your nationality from GB to Ireland. Obviously, an Irish mother, GB father. You grew up in GB. Is that a decision that you were happy with all through your career? Did you feel more Irish or more at home represented Ireland, or was there a little bit of FOMO saying, maybe that was a hasty decision at a young age?
No, I made the decision and I was totally happy with it because I just felt more welcome, and it was a case of obviously when I was before I even started cycling, I had the Irish. I've spent my summers in Ireland, and it was always watching the Stephen Rose Grand Prix in Dublin, in Meadowmount.
I remember you lapped me there one night. You came and you lapped the whole field.
Oh yeah, that. But we literally from that, I had close contact with the Irish Federation from then, and then obviously I ended up being British from school point of view because it was just easy to do national series and stuff, and then went to France, and it was a case of. When I very much got the cold shoulder from GB, it was kind of okay, well, either I've got Ireland who really want me to be a part of it, and I can actually go there and actually feel part of Irish cycling and actually help grow something really special. And it's, it was very happy with my decision, especially the reaction I got from the French cycling community, because people seem to prefer Irish cyclists. And there's definitely a bit of a...
But also, isn't it a weird thing where we talk about talent development? We use the word talent development. You take GB, but they're not actually developing talent. What they're doing is identifying people who are already talented, because you don't know what the finished product is going to be like. They take pure raw materials that are equal. One of them comes out, Dan Martin ends up 19 Grand Tours, winning monuments. They passed on that because you didn't have, in their eyes, early signs of some arbitrary metric that they define as talent. So they're really just talent spotters, by their definition, and it's not even an objective definition of what talent is. It's someone's total subjective opinion. He looks like he could be a bike rider. He, has panache or some stupid other metric, and they form a selection based on that. And then you're in the GP academy, and obviously that's going to accelerate your progression. It seems like a weird system for spotting talent as opposed to developing talent.
I mean, it also could be, just surmising here, but like if your personality fits as well. And obviously, as I was just like we've kind of talked about already, I was very much my own individual person. I was like, no, I'm going to go do this. I'm going to do this. I'm like, and if you don't fit into a system if you do that. Whereas I think Irish cycling is much more accommodating. So I was like, okay, you want to go do that? That's fine. Great. We'll support you doing that. Whereas if you, with like GB, it's like, no, do it our way or not at all. We think this is best for you, so you need to do it like this. And it's kind of like, and maybe that's also where I felt much more at home and more free, and it just suited me as a person to be. And as I say, we've always like Irish rugby has always been supported heavily. I remember when we were, I should do my book plug actually, Chase by Pandas, because this is in the book as well. I remember when I was at, obviously we were a Catholic school growing up near Birmingham, and primary school. And I remember the 1994 World Cup.
Brilliant.
We were the Irish team. I was Paddy Bonner in goal. It wasn't like it wasn't. Yeah, it wasn't. Obviously, I don't think England made that World Cup, but it was just a case of I grew up around a lot of Irish families in the UK as well. So it was it was always very much my dad would also have been Irish if he could have changed. Put it that way.
Did your strong self-identity and sort of, for want of a better expression, pig-headedness, when you came up against equally stubborn characters through your career, like I'm thinking of your time at Quick Step specifically, and Patrick Lefevere's a famously difficult, depending on what reports you read, famously difficult person to get along with. Did you clash with Patrick Lefevere, or what's that relationship like?
I had a fantastic relationship with Patrick and still do. To show obviously he comes across in the media as far as some of the stuff he says, and he's quite outspoken. But as far as I was concerned, he was always very honest, and that's where I am as well. I tell, if I don't like something, I'll tell him. And there was a very open relationship as far as that goes. And obviously, I also performed always, So I think if I had a bad season, it would have been maybe a little bit different. But just like when I won in 2018 at the Tour, one of the first messages I got was from Patrick saying congratulations, and that's right through to now. Like, no, not so much now as I retired, but until I retired, if I had a good result, he'd send me a message, and that's the only team manager who's ever done that, or team owner who's like, he's still, and that team in general, just like I'm still in contact with half. That I only had 2 years there, but I still get messages from directors, even soigneurs. Like, it's just no, that hasn't happened from any other team. Riders as well.
It feels like Patrick Lefevere says publicly maybe what everyone's thinking, and he's no filter on his thoughts. Something you might text like one of your best mates, or I have a couple of good mates who will always do a bit of analysis of tactics or something after a stage. We bounce on WhatsApps back and forth. They're definitely not for anyone else's viewing. Like, if I put any of these things up as a tweet, I'm cancelled. The podcast is gone. It feels like he says that type of stuff. Like, do you remember his comment about Bennett? He said something like leaving Bora Hansgrove and telling everyone who's been bullied, depressed and bankrupt only to return 14 months later. It's like an abusive woman who returns home after domestic violence.
It's like though his phone's bugged or something, isn't it? It's just like,
yeah, it is. Yeah,
it's like, no, it is true, isn't it? It's just like it creates clicks for him, doesn't it? But it's obviously you're just got to be careful now. It's cycling. The fact it gets so many clicks shows how. Obviously he shouldn't be. Like you say, he doesn't have a filter, and it's maybe he doesn't understand how far these things go. Still, it's like that you say one thing and it can explode so quickly.
But he kind of reminds me of Alex Ferguson at Manchester United, where it created this us versus them. Like, I'm fascinated with team culture, and Quickstep through the years seem to have preserved this amazing, they call themselves the Wolf Pack. And maybe that's largely a marketing message, but it feels like this is a band of brothers that are in this together. And anyone that leaves Quickstep, a couple of exceptions, including yourself, people that leave Quickstep normally don't have a positive career trajectory afterwards.
It was definitely the best years of my career there. Obviously, I did well after leaving Quickstep, but I mean, it's just because it's such a nice atmosphere to race in. I mean, that looks like it's changed a little bit now. Obviously, they got a bit more pressure, but where that comes from is that they put all their eggs, well, a lot of their eggs in the Remco basket, which is out of necessity because of obviously he's the Belgian superstar. But I think when we look back to when I was there, we had like 10 riders who are probably not top 10 riders in the world, but 10 really good riders that could all win. Whereas now you look at the roster and you're like, well, how many guys are actually like in the top 20 cyclists in the world? And it's kind of like, it's just Remco. Really. Maybe Merlier he obviously wins quite often, but you don't have that same, like, we just spread the pressure on each other because you know that, okay, today's my day. But and literally, I remember in the team bus, like before the start of races, it'd be like, right, guys, we know you want to win, so just go out there and race your bikes hard, enjoy yourselves, and see what the result is. That was a team briefing. And it's like as a rider, you're like, yeah, these guys just believe in me because they. Whereas other teams, you have this mentality of like, right, guys, you've got to try and win today. It's like, well, yeah, I know, I want to win as well, and if I don't win, there's nobody going to be more pissed off than me. Like, see, you don't need to have a go at me for not winning. Like, because if I could have won, I would have won because I want to win. And it's like this it was a real understanding as far as like, I mean, me and Julian got like second and third in Flesh the one year. We should be pretty happy with that, but we were just gutted, because we just wanted to win it. And the team was up, and it's didn't matter if it was me or Julian, but it was just like, we just wanted to beat Valverde. And it was this case of, but as I say, you always, whenever in that team, we always had this situation when we win in 50, 60 races a year. You're like, oh, if I don't win today, he'll go and win tomorrow. Or this guy will go and that's really nice as a rider to have that backup. Whereas obviously we've seen now, like Remco got knocked out in Zulia, in Basque Country, injured. Then they're struggling through the Ardennes to find like, having a backup plan. Whereas when I was there, like Julian got knocked out of the Ardennes with an injury. Well, they still had me, and I was the leader for it. So it just showed that's a really good example of how cycling has changed.
Hey Roadman, excuse the short interruption. I love riding the bike, but on account of being so busy with the podcast at the moment, I'm now what's called a time-crunched rider. I never thought I'd see the day. But I have a tool. I'm using Wattbike to keep myself sharp and on point with specific sessions to maximise that available training time. I have a Wattbike Atom right here in the recording studio beside me, and when I have an hour in between interviews, I jump on. It's removing all the friction points for me. There's no more 10-minute setup, unfolding legs, banging my knees off stuff, getting my hands dirty, the usual connection issues. It just works every single time. The Atom's perfect for virtual racing as well because it has crisp gear changes, it has 1% accuracy, and it has max gradient capability of up to 25%. If you're looking for an indoor trainer, I honestly couldn't recommend this any higher. I've been using a Wattbike since 2013. Honestly, it's the last indoor trainer that you're ever going to need. If you head on over to wattbike.com now and use code ROADMAN10, that's ROADMENTEN, and that's going to get you 10% off your Wattbike. Yeah, Dan, you bounced around Garmin, Quickstep, UAE, some of the biggest teams in the world. What was there one team had a toxic culture versus one team had an amazing culture, and what goes to create a toxic versus a winning culture?
I mean, it was always part of my decision making for a team to look into it, and obviously the toxic's a strong word. When I hit the UAE team, it was a team very much in transition and an incredibly nice group of people, just old school. There was not a bad. I was lucky enough never really to have a bad culture. There was there was years when, like 2015, when I wasn't going good, and in Garmin, my last year at Garmin, and when you're the leader of the team and it's not going well, it's obvious that people like start to put pressure on you, but it was in a negative way, and that's why it made my results even worse, because I just started to feel really a lot of pressure. And that's where the quick step mentality is. That's why it was perfect for me to go there from Canada, because it was like, it was a no pressure environment almost, there's no expectation. And it's kind of, there's a way of putting pressure on riders that is quite, it's a very difficult balance to strike, as far as like putting pressure in a positive way and not in a negative way. Not like, and some teams put pressure on riders that they're like, come on, go out there and prove yourself. It's like, well, what do you mean I have to prove yourself to me? You sign me. Like, if you sign me on the team, you believe I'm a good rider. Why does suddenly, so you don't believe me anymore? And it creates self-doubt. Whereas if, like, the quick step mentality, that's why I thrive there, because it's almost a case of, you're in this team because you're a bloody good bike rider. Go out there and we believe in you. Just enjoy racing your bike. And it's a very fine line. It's just those little words of psychology that can really switch it in a brain for a rider. And that's why, you see the UAE team now with Tadej. He doesn't feel, I don't know, what's most impressive about Tadej is that he doesn't seem to feel this pressure. He just he's got the whole weight of that team on his shoulders pretty much. And it's just like, whatever, if I win, I win. If not, and that's the fact he's managed to hold on to that. You see a lot of riders crumble under that weight of expectation.
But he's just so ridiculously good. And maybe it's us as cycling fans conditioned post that whole Armstrong era of being skeptical when someone has this much dominance. Is there a part of you worries that any of these performances aren't natural?
You know what? I've lived through it your whole career. I even crossed over Armstrong at the end of his comeback year, and you just have to sit back and watch the sport as an entertainment thing, because there's only one person who knows. And my performance has been questioned. I won 2 monuments and stages of the tour, whatever or not. And it's like, you have people on social media questioning you, and I count myself pretty fortunate that most people believed in what I did, which is really quite humbling that they trust me, and it's, I think, watching the performances now, obviously there is a lot of domination going on, but there's only one, at the end of the day, there's only one guy who knows, and that's him himself. And how are they supposed to prove what they're doing or isn't, It's
that's the problem, isn't it? How do you prove a negative? How do I prove that I don't do something? It's a weird burden of proof that we're asking of these athletes. And we had a question the other day coming in about it, and I said exactly that. It's like, you need to just trust, unless, because that's how our system works. It's, whether it's a criminal justice system or it's a doping system, you need to have a positive, weight of evidence saying somebody has broken anti-doping protocols or criminal law or wherever it is. You can't ask them put a negative reverse burden on themselves. Prove your innocence. How do you prove your innocence?
I don't even think that. I think we just need to watch the sport for what it is, and at the end of the day, it doesn't really, it's just a case of, we're never going to know. Either way, we might do. If something does happen, we might end up finding out something. But on the other side of it, it's like, it's an entertainment business, and it's kind of, as a rider, obviously I was directly involved and were beaten by a lot of guys who tested positive afterwards. Look at the 2009 top 10 in Giro de Lombardia. I think I was 8th or 9th. And it's like, there's a few guys on that list, who were, and it's, looking back, it's just part of it. And obviously I was affected, but you just got to be at peace with it, because it's just like a case of, well, it happened, and it is what it is. And but yeah, it's, as knowing a lot of the guys personally, so I'd hope that what we're seeing is pure, but it's as I say, there's only one guy there's only that individual who knows.
You mentioned there you won 2 monuments over the course of your career. We're 10 years on. Is it too soon to talk about the 2014 Liège-Bastogne-Liège
10th year anniversary? Yeah. I kind of missed that one this year, actually. I was like, and it's also the 10th year anniversary of the pothole in Belfast. So this is not a good, it's a good week to talk, or maybe not.
What I can remember, I remember like screaming at the TV and being like, "Oh my god, he's got it! Second year in a row, he's won Liège. What a tap in coming here!" I think you were bridging up to, was it Pozzovivo and Purito? Caruso. And look, you were nailed on. It looked like. Did you touch a pedal? Did you slide out? Talk about what happened.
There was some oil on the road or something, some diesel or oil on the road, and we looked at the road afterwards, and it was just like, I didn't touch a pedal because, I mean, look at it. I literally, the year before, I sprinted around the corner out of the saddle. It's not a corner you need to stop pedaling. People are like, "Oh, you clipped a pedal. What a like." It's like, no, you can pedal around that corner. It's not really a corner, So my front wheel just slid out. No idea how or why, but I guess a wheel or something. But yeah, I'd even just backed off the pedals just before the corner to just recover like briefly for the sprint, because I knew I had it. I had it, and it was I mean, the one that got away. I mean, obviously it would have been a lot more painful if I hadn't won the year before, but it was still. But the irony of that is, and I remember clear as day saying in the interviews after the race finished, I was like, "Oh, you know what? But it's really rubbish. But at least I know the form's good, and I got the Giro next week, and I'll see what happens stage one of the Giro."
Down again. So you kind of straddled between, you mainly stage hunted in the Grand Tours, with a lot of success, but you did have a brief foray into trying to ride GC. It was 2020 in the Vuelta, you rode GC. Nico didn't do the stage hunting so much. He typically played around that GC game, especially in his AG2R years. How do you feel about that looking back now? Are you happy with your decision to go more stage hunting than try and ride the general? Roadman, I'm going to date myself here, but I've been riding the bike for almost 20 years. And in that time, I've cycled through every cycling apparel brand out there. And I kept swapping out different apparel brands each season until I found Le Col. There's something really different about Le Col. And as soon as you slip into the gear, you notice it feels different. It feels better. I've had the pleasure of chatting with Yanto Barker on the podcast. He's the Le Col founder. And his dedication to crafting the fastest, most refined cycling apparel out there, it's nothing short of inspiring. Yanto isn't just trying to create gear. I get the feeling he's actively and obsessively trying to perfect cycling gear. Trust me, as soon as you slip on the Le Col kit, as soon as you zip up that jersey, you can feel that commitment. The proof for Le Col, it's in the pudding. This is the same kit that Jay Hindley wore when he clinched overall victory in the Giro d'Italia. There's a confidence that comes with wearing apparel that's been battle tested and podium proven in races like the Giro d'Italia. Trust me, feeling good on the bike means you're going to perform better. If you have a second, I highly advise you to jump on over to lacol.cc and check out their amazing range of kit and experience this feeling for yourself.
Oh, I mean, ironically, I think now would be, I would be really suited to riding GC now because of how the racing is. It's kind of, I was just a lot more aggressive. I was trying to win most days. And I mean, I still got, what was it? How many times? I think I was 7 times in top 10 on GC, so it wasn't that bad.
Oh, that's pretty solid.
So yeah, no, it was just a different type of GC racing, and a lot of it was just, obviously with the Sky years, it was just dominated by a controlled way of racing that didn't suit me. And I think now, obviously, it would be I'd be really suited to racing GC now, because it was, I wasn't actively not riding GC, I was just trying to win stages as well. And that's just the way it's kind of like a little bit like Tadej now, Pogacar, like he's going out there every day just looking to try and win stages instead of just this energy conservation, which was the vogue 10 years ago. Like it was just save as much energy as possible and then smash the time trial. That's how Grand Tours were won before, whereas now it's a lot more aggressive. And if there was 4 or 5 guys racing as aggressively as I used to race, the racing would have been a bit more different. But I found myself very, very often attacking and just having Sky riding a tempo behind with everybody else on their wheel, and then everybody would wait for the last 500 meters, and and not because obviously I've kind of proved it was possible to attack, but looking back, it was pretty stupid to attack. It wasn't the best tactic, but that's just how I like to race. And it was like a case of, I mean, I don't have regret. I don't live with regrets ever, because you can't change it, can you? So it's I do. Yeah, it's more about what you learn as far as the training and nutrition and all that. It's like, if I knew that like back in 2015, I would have been a lot better rider. But
so, how do you go about deconstructing one of those Grand Tour stage wins when the stage is announced? Do you start then and look at it and go, okay, stage 9, that's one that suits me, and then try and reverse engineer the demands of that into your training, or how did that deconstruction process work?
You just prepare for a Grand Tour as a whole, you know. So you're just getting into good condition. I think it's a lot less scientific than people think, as far as you look at the stages that suit you, of course, but you don't train specifically around that for a Grand Tour, unless you're just going for stages. But even then, it's just about getting fit, and then also, I mean, you don't want to put too many eggs into one basket, you know. It's like you really need to focus on just pure condition and form, and then having the legs to actually do it. Obviously, a lot of the training is around just mountain training, climbs, and especially me as well. The explosiveness was always how I'd win stages, a sprint or whatever. So they're keeping that in the training as well.
Who was you got to ride with some incredible riders. Is there anyone that left a lasting impact on you, and you look back and you say, oh, that one person was hugely impactful as a teammate on my career?
Not really, no. I mean, it was just, there's too many guys to think of off the cuff, you know. It's kind of like, obviously I had a lot, like, because I stayed at Garmin for so many years, and they were really my formative years.
Yeah.
You know, we created bonds when there was a group of us just going around racing together, you know, and especially the Ardennes group I had some really good friends. Like, I mean, Nathan Haas was a really good, really good friends, got really close. And Ryder Hegedal was a really key guy in my both Catalonia and Liège victories, and then other races as well, you know. So when I won the stage of the Tour as well, you know, we just worked really well together, and it was just a really good group of guys. Like Christian Van der Velde and David Miller as well. We were also really they were the kind of the mentor figures in the team when I just first turned pro, you know. So those guys definitely helped form my character moving forward. And then it's a team, it's a business, you know. You don't really get. I was only 2 years in every team after that, so you don't really get the time to really form these strong relationships. Well, then that's why Quickstep was pretty special, because we were just a good group of mates just riding around, you know, and it was just like, it was a real good chemistry between us.
Why'd you leave Quickstep?
I mean, budgetary reasons, you know. I was basically like begging Patrick to make me an offer. And he's just like, I just don't have anything. Like, it's just, the team's just growing, and I was the one that had to make way, you know. And it was a case of, obviously, I had a good offer at UAE to go and lead the team, and I saw the potential in UAE, and obviously the team it's since become, but it just took a bit longer to get there than we envisaged. You know, the idea was that it would be the team it is now already in 2018, 2019. But obviously it took a few more years to get to that level than they planned. And I was keen building that team, you know, and that's what they wanted me as part of the team as well. They wanted me, they signed me to actually help with that process. And so, it was, I mean, obviously the first year was really difficult. I still managed to run top 10 in the Tour and win a stage, but it was, it was a challenging experience, obviously. Italian culture, very stuck in their ways, and that's what it was during the 2018 season that it really became the team it is now, and had a bit of a revolution to become the team that obviously Tadej's they're winning a few races now. So
and like when you get towards that point of your career where you don't really know if I've one contract left, if I've two contracts left, you know, you don't have 6 contracts left. Does it change from a solely cycling focused lens where you're like, oh, I need a support structure that's going to allow me to win the biggest races, to I need to make sure I have enough cash in my bank accounts for life after cycling because it's coming closer to the end?
I never really thought about that, because I always knew I'd figure something out and be comfortable. It was more a case of the UAE offered me the chance to be a team leader, to actually like come in and lead the team at the Tour de France. And that was, they were saying, they'd build a team around me, give me everything I needed to have a run at the podium at the Tour. And I just got 6th in 2017, and it was like, okay, well, like at the end of the day, I mean, when you get 6th at the Tour, and I mean that 2017 season, I mean, I look back, I think I got first. When I finished at the Tour, I had 60 race days, and I'd got top 10 on 30 of them. and it was like third in Paris, like all these results, like second in Liège, second in Flèche, like sixth at the Tour. Would have been with a broken back. I probably might have been podium at the Tour. Who knows? We'll never know that, and it was like, when you get to that point of results wise, like whichever team you sign for, money's it's going to be good, So it wasn't a financial decision. It was just purely a case of, well, which team is going to offer me the best opportunity here, And I got looking back, obviously, it just didn't develop as fast as I'd hoped. The team, and obviously got to the stage where it's one of the best teams in the world now. It just took, as I say, just didn't get there while I was there.
Yeah, you have such amazing consistency. Like, I flicked onto your pro cycling stats before, and like, it's absolutely ridiculous. Like, your consistency basically across every year. But I think that consistency in a lot of ways paints over a different story when you've followed your career maybe as closely as any Irish cycling fan has. Like, we all follow the Irish riders, so we know you have those setbacks, like crashing out of the Giro, like the crash in Liège. But you seemed almost unfazed by the setbacks. If you look at a rider now like Eddie Dunbar, who, buckets of potential, but he just keeps hitting the deck and he keeps having setback after setback. What sort of advice would you give him on dealing with setbacks to keep pushing forward?
There's definitely a certain amount of psychology around it, because I think it's when I got into almost like a rhythm. You get stuck in a rut as far as like crash. And I think I had like 5 or 6 crashes in the space of like 9 months from starting at that Liège. And then, was it starting? I can't remember. No, it started in the Vuelta in 2013 and it finished like even as late as the Vuelta in 2014. Even though I was 7th on GC, I still had a bad crash there. And it was, it's almost like the difference is you kind of end up almost thinking, like expecting to crash. Whereas if you're in a good place mentally, you're like, you see a crash happen, your instinct is to do everything you can to not crash. And that might sound silly, but you don't have time to think. It's it's an instinct, it's a reflex. Whereas if you go through a series of crashes, you get to the point when you see a crash, you're like, oh, here we go again. And you jump on top of the pile, and it's kind of like, and that's why you see these guys. I went through it myself, and it takes a really difficult step, a positive step somehow to get out of that routine, routine. But it's a challenge for sure. And I think I was just lucky to have really good people around me, but also to change the psychology behind it as well, and just be like, okay, and just go for a good run of, I guess, not crashing. But it's a real difficult one, and it's psychologically, I think it's a big challenge, because obviously I think a lot of the sport, all these guys, all the peloton is super talented. They're all like eating, drinking, training to the absolute maximum. You're getting to the point now where, like, there is a slight difference in genetics as far as making the difference, but a lot of the difference we're seeing is psychology, and that ability to focus, concentrate, and also like put everything into their effort.
I know you don't ride as much as you used to ride, but word on the street is you're coming back to Ireland and pinning on the numbers for the Tap the Tour.
Well, never got the chance to really race in Ireland. I actually did the Tour of Ireland in 2008 for one day, and I was violently ill and literally had a fever and had to stop. So yeah, as there's no professional races left, but like, obviously I got invited by ASO and to really be part of bringing the roads of the Tour de France back to Ireland and bringing this experience to Ireland and to Kerry, to Killarney. And it's, 7th of September this year. Really looking forward to it. And it's an excuse to train as well. I really need an excuse to ride my bike. So I genuinely think that I'm doing the long route, I believe. It's 135k. There's a second route that's 95 kilometers. And that probably going to be the longest ride I've done since Giro de Lombardia in 2021. So I really do need to get on my bike. So it's I'm in the right place here in Andorra to train. But yeah, I know I'm still working with the ASO guys to make it as exciting a day as possible. I think it's going to be really cool. And I've seen their events before. The organisers, it's one hell of an effort to actually bring the show, the Tour de France show to Ireland. And hopefully we'll see as many people there as possible. And also I'm going to drop in as well. We just launched today and I've tapped to Ireland training camp here in Andorra with myself.
Oh, top class.
I've launched a training camp company here, basically an excuse to get me on the bike. But yeah, so I'm doing a 4-day training over the first bank holiday in August. Basically come ride with me here in Andorra. I'll give you some tips for race day, get some fitness, explore Andorra. I mean, main reason behind that was also because everybody keeps asking me why I live in Andorra, and it's because the riding's hard, but it's a bloody amazing place to ride. So, I got a little training camp tour company here now, hosting cycling events.
How do people sign up for that?
Likeaproevents.com. I think it's on the Etapa Ireland Instagram as well today. We launched it. We've got 4 or 5 camps throughout the year, but that one's specifically around obviously talking about Etapa Ireland, getting you prepared. I think it's 4 weeks before the event, so a good time to come to altitude and just try and get a bit of
altitude training. Even the sportive lads are doing altitude training now.
Well, yeah, exactly. Yeah, the weather should be really good as well. But yeah, no, super excited for Etapa Ireland now, and it's going to be a pleasure to actually ride on. Not competitively, I was going to say competitively on Irish roads, but it's definitely not a race. I will not be racing. You will not see me at the front of that thing.
No, you will. We're going to have €100 bet on it. I'm going to start trading. €100 bet, me and you, straight up.
I'll be on the, maybe, yeah. Well, I'll be on the Guinness the night before, maybe. We'll be.
That's my only chance, actually.
That's the aim. That's the aim of the weekend. I think just make it a real fun social weekend and just, I'm just excited to see how it turns out. It's been really good fun. But yeah, let's hope for good weather because it could be pretty brutal.
Yeah, Kerry on a rainy day. Dan, it's an absolute pleasure. Congratulations on an amazing career. And yeah, we'll have to get you back on the podcast for round 2 shortly.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I'd love to come back. Thanks, Anthony.
Cheers, buddy.
So if you like this video, you should definitely check out this video because I know you're going to love it. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel.